My son called me late at night. His voice didn't sound like my son. They kicked me out, he said. I asked who. My father-in-law, he whispered. Then he added one sentence that made my hands go cold. He said my bloodline wasn't worthy, and that's when I realized this wasn't about marriage, it was about power. My name is Victor Hale. I'm 61 years old. I live in Brookhaven. What my son told me that night forced me to make a decision I never thought I'd have to make. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know in the comments, where are you listening from? I stayed on the phone with my son long after the line should have gone quiet. At first, he didn't say much, just breathing, short, controlled, the kind of breathing you hear when someone is trying not to fall apart in front of you. Where are you? I finally asked. In the car, he said. I pulled over. It was past midnight. The road behind him hummed faintly through the speaker. Are you hurt? No, he said. Then after a pause, not physically. That pause told me more than his words ever could. I asked him to tell me everything, from the beginning, slowly. He let out a breath like he'd been holding it for hours. We went there for dinner, he said. Nothing special. Just a family thing. His wife's parents lived in a gated neighborhood on the far edge of the county. I'd been there once, tall hedges, long driveway. A house that felt less like a home and more like a statement. They were already drinking when we arrived, he continued, laughing, talking about legacy. About where their family came from. I felt my jaw tighten. They started asking questions, he said. About us, about you, about me, I asked. About where we're from, what you do. What our grandparents did. I didn't interrupt, I knew better. My father-in-law kept smiling, my son said, but it wasn't friendly. It was like he was measuring me. The car behind him honked. He waited until the sound passed. Then he said it, my son continued, right there at the table. What did he say? He said, some bloodlines are meant to lead. Others are meant to serve. I closed my eyes. I laughed, my son said quietly. I thought it was a joke. Was it? No, he replied. He looked straight at me and said, this marriage was a mistake. I gripped the edge of my kitchen counter so hard my knuckles hurt. What did your wife do? I asked. She didn't say anything. That hurt worse than the insult. And then, my son continued, he stood up, walked to the door, opened it, and told me to leave, just like that, no shouting. No argument, just a decision. He said my bloodline wasn't worthy of their name, my son whispered, that I should be grateful they tolerated me as long as they did. I didn't speak. I was afraid of what I might say. I looked at my wife, he said. I thought she'd stop him. Did she? No, there it was, the silence that changes everything. She wouldn't look at me, he said. She just stared at the table. I heard his breath hitch, so I left. Where are you now? I asked again. Near the river. I didn't know where else to go. Stay there, I said. I'm coming, he protested, said it was late, said I didn't have to. I'm coming, I repeated. The drive felt longer than it should have. The radio stayed off. Every mile gave me too much time to think. About my son, about the way he'd grown up, about the nights I worked double shifts so he could go to college without debt. About how none of that mattered to a man who believed worth was inherited, not earned. When I found him, he was sitting in his car with the engine off, hands on the wheel like he didn't trust them not to shake. He looked smaller than I remembered, not weaker, just diminished. I opened the passenger door and got in without asking. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, I don't know what to do. You come home, I said. What about my wife? That's her choice, I replied. Not yours to beg for. He nodded slowly, like he already knew. On the drive back, he told me more. About the comments that had started months ago. Little things at first, jokes about accents. Questions about old money, suggestions that he should be grateful for marrying into something better. I told myself it didn't matter, he said. That love was enough. I pulled into my driveway and shut off the engine. Love that asks you to shrink isn't love, I said. Inside, I made coffee neither of us drank. He sat at the table, staring at his hands. I feel ashamed, he said. For what? I asked. For thinking I could belong there. I leaned across the table. You didn't lose anything tonight. He looked up, confused. They showed you who they are, I continued. That's not a loss, that's clarity. He swallowed hard. What if she chooses them? I didn't answer right away, because sometimes the truth needs space. I can't choose for her, I said finally. But I can choose what we accept. That night, he slept on the couch like he used to when he was a teenager visiting home from college, shoes by the door, phone face down on the table. I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about that word. Bloodline, the arrogance of it, the danger of it. People who believe worth is inherited always believe cruelty is justified. By morning, my son's phone buzzed. A message. He read it silently. Then he handed me the screen. This didn't have to happen. Apologize and we can fix it. No apology from them. No regret. Just a demand. I handed the phone back. What do you want to do? I asked. He looked at me, eyes clearer than they'd been all night. I'm done begging, he said. I nodded. Because I knew then, whatever came next wouldn't be quiet, and it wouldn't be polite. And someone was finally about to learn that dignity doesn't come from blood. By mid-morning, the house felt too quiet. My son sat on the couch, scrolling without really seeing anything. Every few minutes, his phone buzzed. He didn't answer. He didn't even flinch anymore. That scared me more than tears would have. Eat something, I said, setting a plate in front of him. He shook his head. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten since yesterday. I know. I sat across from him. We're not doing this alone. He looked up. Doing what? Finding out what they're really trying to do. That got his attention. I'd learned something over the years. When people use words like bloodline and worthiness, there's almost always something else underneath. Control, money, fear, pride, sometimes all of it. By noon, his wife finally called. He stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. I stayed where I was, close enough to hear, far enough to let him breathe. Hello, he said. Her voice came through tinny and tight. Why did you leave? He blinked. You watched them throw me out. They were upset, she said quickly. You shouldn't have challenged my father. I didn't challenge him, my son said. I existed. There was a pause, then he's old-fashioned. So is gravity, my son replied. It still breaks things. I almost smiled. Almost. They're embarrassed, she continued. People talk. My son closed his eyes. They humiliated me. They say you humiliated the family, she said. I saw his shoulders sag. Do you agree with them? He asked quietly. Silence. That silence was louder than any insult. I just want peace, she finally said. You want compliance, he replied. She inhaled sharply. If you apologize, we can move past this. For what? He asked. For not knowing your place. I stood up. My son didn't look at me, but I could hear the steel in his voice now. I won't apologize for my blood. Her tone hardened. Then don't come back. The call ended. He sat there for a long moment, phone still pressed to his ear like it might ring again. She chose them, he said. I didn't correct him. Sometimes naming the truth too fast feels like another wound. That afternoon, I started making calls, not to argue, not to threaten, to learn. A friend of mine had once worked with his father-in-law years ago. Old business circles have long memories. I asked a simple question. What do you know about that family? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Careful, my friend said. They care a lot about appearances. Why? I asked. Because appearances hide cracks. I pressed. Old money stories, he continued. Some true, some exaggerated. A lot of pressure to marry right, maintain image. Any scandals? I asked. He hesitated. Nothing public. That word again. Public. That evening, my son's phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't his wife. It was her brother. He put it on speaker. You really messed up, the voice said. Dad's furious. My son didn't respond. He thinks you were getting ideas, the brother continued. From your father, I laughed out loud. There it was. You don't belong, the brother said. You never did. My son leaned forward. Then why marry me? Another pause. Because she wanted you, the brother said. And we let her try, let her. The call ended. My son stared at the wall. They never planned to accept me, he said. No, I replied. They planned to own you. That night an email arrived from a legal firm, formal, polite. Cold, a notice requesting my son vacate the marital property permanently, a suggestion that further contact could be emotionally destabilizing. I read it twice. They're building a case, I said. For what? My son asked. To erase you. His jaw tightened. I won't disappear. Good, I said, because now we prepare. The next morning we met with an attorney, not flashy, not aggressive. Precise, she listened, took notes, asked questions no one else had asked yet. Did they ever control finances? She asked. My son nodded. Her father insisted on managing investments. Said it was tradition. Did they ever discourage outside relationships? She continued. Yes. Did they ever suggest you were replaceable? She asked. My son didn't answer right away. Then yes, the attorney closed her notebook. This isn't just prejudice, it's leverage. Leverage for what? I asked. She looked at my son. For obedience. On the way home, my son finally spoke again. I thought marrying her meant joining a family, he said. I didn't know it meant surrendering myself. I glanced at him. Families that demand surrender aren't families. That evening, something shifted. A message came through from his wife, short, "We need to talk, alone." He stared at it. "You don't have to go," I said. "I know," he replied, "but I need to hear it." "Then I'll be nearby," I said. He nodded. As he grabbed his jacket, I noticed his hands weren't shaking anymore. That worried me, because fear leaving often means anger has arrived. And I knew, whatever that conversation brought back with him, would push this story past the point of quiet resolution. I waited in my car across the street from the cafe, engine off, lights dark. My son sat at a table inside, hands wrapped around a cup he hadn't touched. He looked calm from a distance, too calm. The kind of calm that comes after something breaks. She arrived 10 minutes late. I recognized her immediately, chin lifted, posture perfect, like she was walking into a meeting she expected to win. She kissed him on the cheek. He didn't move. They talked. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read the shapes of the conversation. Her hands moved a lot. His stayed still. At one point, she leaned in. Her face hardened. He flinched, not physically, but something in his shoulders shifted, like an old habit resurfacing. I almost got out of the car then, but I didn't. Because this was something he had to finish himself. 40 minutes later, he came out alone. He didn't look at the cafe again. He slid into the passenger seat and closed the door slowly. "Well," I asked. He stared straight ahead. "She wants me back." "That's good, isn't it?" He shook his head. "She wants me back properly." I waited. "She said if I apologize publicly, if I agree to some boundaries. If I stop letting you influence me, they'll forgive me." "Forgive you for what?" "For embarrassing them." I felt a familiar anger rise. "And what did you say?" "I asked her one question," he replied. "What?" "I asked her if she believed what her father said about my bloodline." I held my breath. "She didn't answer at first," he continued. "Then she said, 'It's not about belief, it's about harmony.'" "Harmony," I repeated. "She said marriages survive when one person knows when to adapt. And she meant you," I said. He nodded. "I told her I wouldn't apologize for existing," he said quietly. "She said then there's nothing left to discuss." I put the car in gear and drove. Neither of us spoke for a while. Back at home, he sat at the kitchen table and stared at nothing. "They were testing me," he said suddenly. "All this time." "Yes," I replied, "to see how much you'd give up." He laughed once, short, bitter. I kept giving. That night, the retaliation began. Not loud, strategic. His access to shared accounts was frozen. A notice appeared in his email, termination of authorization. "They locked me out," he said. "Did they tell you they would?" "No." The next day, his employer called him in. Concerned tone, careful words. They'd received an anonymous message suggesting he was emotionally unstable and going through a domestic crisis. I sat in the parking lot while he went inside. When he came back out, his face was tight. "They're watching me now," he said. "They want you to feel small," I replied. "Unreliable." That afternoon, we sat down with the attorney again. She listened, then she leaned back. "This is coercive pressure after separation," she said, "and it's escalating." "Can they do this?" my son asked. "They can try," she replied. "But they're leaving a trail." A trail. That word stuck with me, because people who believe they're untouchable always underestimate how visible they are. That evening, a package arrived. No return address. Inside was a document, a family tree, their family tree, generations laid out in neat lines, names, dates, notes, and one page marked in red, my son's name. Beside it, a handwritten note, temporary. My son stared at it, jaw tight. "They never meant for me to stay," he said. "No," I replied. "They meant to control the narrative." That night, I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about how people like that operate. They don't scream, they don't threaten openly, they isolate, they rewrite. They erase. The next morning, my son made a decision. "I'm not hiding anymore," he said. "What do you mean?" "I'm not playing quiet, I'm documenting everything." He started writing, dates, times. Calls, messages, he saved voicemails, screenshots, emails, every little thing. By evening, his wife messaged again. "This is getting out of hand." He replied once. It already was. She didn't respond. 2 days later, something unexpected happened. Her cousin reached out. A woman my son barely knew. Her message was short. "You're not crazy. They did this to someone before." My heart dropped. My son called her immediately. I listened from the other room. "They married her into the family," the cousin said, then slowly cut her off, told everyone she was unstable. When she finally left, they said she was ungrateful. "What happened to her?" my son asked. "She disappeared," the cousin replied, "moved away, changed her name." "They erased her." My son ended the call and sat in silence. "They were never going to let me leave cleanly," he said. "No," I replied. "Which means they're afraid." Of what? Of you not breaking, I said. That night, my son stood in the doorway of the living room. Dad, he said, I think I know what I need to do. I looked at him. Whatever it is, I said, we'll do it carefully. He nodded. Because if they believe blood decides worth, he continued, then I'm about to show them what dignity looks like. And for the first time since that phone call, I didn't feel fear. I felt resolve. Because the next step wasn't about survival anymore. It was about truth. And once truth steps into the room, people who live on illusion never recover quietly. The next week moved differently, slower on the surface, faster underneath. My son didn't rush anymore. He stopped reacting, stopped answering immediately. He watched instead. That's when people make mistakes. He kept documenting everything. Messages, voicemails, the sudden changes, even the silences, especially the silences, because silence can be strategic. On Tuesday morning, his wife's attorney emailed a formal request for mediation, neutral language, professional tone, but the timing mattered. It came 2 hours after my son received notice that his name had been removed from a joint investment account, one he'd contributed to for years. They're repositioning, I said. They're tightening, he replied. We met our attorney again that afternoon. She spread the documents across the table. They're trying to frame this as a clean separation, she said. No abuse. No discrimination, just irreconcilable differences. And the Bloodline comment, my son asked. She tapped the paper. They'll deny it, say it was misinterpreted. I leaned forward. Unless we make it undeniable. She looked at me for a moment, then nodded slowly. There may be a way. That evening, my son got a call from his father-in-law, not hidden, not polite, direct. You've made enough noise, the man said. My son put the call on speaker. Noise, my son replied calmly. You've embarrassed us, the man continued. People are asking questions. About what? My son asked. About why our daughter married beneath her, he snapped. There it was, clear, recorded. I felt my chest tighten. You said it again, my son said. I said the truth, the man replied. Blood matters. And you're comfortable saying that out loud, my son asked. There was a pause. Then I don't answer to you. The call ended. My son stared at the phone, then he looked at me. That's enough, he said. The next step wasn't loud, it was precise. Our attorney filed a supplemental statement, attaching recordings, messages, and a sworn affidavit. Not for drama, for record. 2 days later, mediation began. Neutral room, long table. Water pitchers untouched. His wife sat across from him. She looked smaller now, less certain. Her parents weren't there. That told me everything. The mediator spoke first, calm, procedural. My son listened, then he spoke. I'm not here to negotiate money, he said. I'm here to clarify truth. The mediator raised an eyebrow. My marriage ended the moment I was told my blood made me unworthy, my son continued. That belief shaped every action that followed. His wife looked down. The mediator turned to her. Do you deny that statement was made? She hesitated. That hesitation echoed. I didn't say it, she said softly. But you didn't stop it, my son replied. Silence filled the room. The mediator cleared his throat. Let's stay focused. No, my son said. This is the focus. He slid the phone across the table. Would you like to hear it? He asked. The mediator pressed play. The voice filled the room. Cold, certain, blood matters. No one spoke when it ended. The mediator exhaled slowly. That changes things. Outside, my son leaned against the wall, eyes closed. I didn't want it to end like this, he said. It didn't, I replied. They ended it, you exposed it. That night, something shifted publicly. A rumor reached us through a friend. The family's charitable board had postponed a gala, quietly, without explanation. The next day, an invitation disappeared from my son's inbox. He hadn't noticed it before. He noticed now. They're distancing, he said. From what? I asked. From the truth, he replied. That afternoon, his wife came to the house. Alone, she didn't knock. She stood at the end of the driveway like she wasn't sure she belonged anywhere. My son went out to meet her. I watched from the porch. They spoke for a long time. When she left, he came back inside and sat down heavily. She said they never meant it like that, he said. Like what? I asked. Like superiority, he replied. She said they were just protecting tradition. I shook my head. Tradition doesn't require humiliation. She asked if we could start over, he said quietly. And I asked her who she'd choose if it happened again. I waited. She didn't answer. The following week, the settlement arrived, clean, uncontested, no statements, no apologies. Just signatures my son signed without hesitation. On the last page, he paused, then added a line, no further contact. He slid the paper back. It's done, he said, but endings aren't always endings. Sometimes they're disclosures. 2 days later, an article circulated quietly, not naming names, not accusing, a piece about class prejudice in modern families. About how power disguises itself as tradition. A quote stood out: "Worth isn't inherited, it's demonstrated." My son stared at the screen. "Did you?" I asked. "No," he said. "But someone else did," I smiled, because truth doesn't need a single mouth, it spreads. And once it does, people who built their identity on exclusion start to fracture. My son stood by the window that evening, watching the sun dip low. "They thought I'd disappear," he said. "They thought wrong," I replied. He nodded. And for the first time since that night call, I could tell he wasn't surviving anymore. He was reclaiming himself. The collapse didn't happen all at once. It never does with people like them. It came in quiet fractures, small losses that stacked up until the structure couldn't hold. My son noticed it first in the way phones stopped ringing. Invitations dried up. Meetings got postponed. Emails went unanswered, not dramatic, just deliberate. "They're being avoided," my son said one morning, scrolling through his phone. "People don't like being near fire," I replied. He nodded. "Especially when it spreads." The first real crack came a week later. A mutual acquaintance called, someone neutral, careful with words. "I didn't hear this from you," the man said, "but the board asked him to step back." "Step back from what?" I asked. "Everything," he replied. Temporarily, temporary is what people say when permanence feels too honest. My son didn't celebrate. He just sat there quiet. "I didn't want revenge," he said. "I wanted respect." "And now?" I asked. "And now they're learning the difference." His ex-wife hadn't contacted him since signing the papers, until one night. She called just after 10. He stared at the screen for a long time before answering. "Yes," he said. Her voice sounded smaller now, less sure. "They're angry at me," she said. He closed his eyes. "They say I should have handled you better." "Handled." "I told them I loved you," she continued. "They said love isn't the point." My son leaned back in his chair. "Then what is order?" she whispered. That word again. The same one people use when they don't want to say control. "I didn't know how deep it went," she said. "I thought if I stayed quiet it would pass." "Silence always helps the person with power," my son replied. She started crying. "I lost them," she said. "And I lost you." He didn't interrupt. "I don't expect forgiveness," she continued. "I just needed you to know I see it now." He took a breath. "Seeing it now doesn't undo what happened." "I know," she said. I'm sorry." When the call ended, he sat there for a long time. "You okay?" I asked. "Yes," he said slowly, "because I finally heard the truth." Even if it came too late. The following weeks were quieter, but quiet doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means people are watching. A former employee of her father reached out anonymously. Then another story started surfacing, not identical, but familiar: pressure, hierarchy, exclusion dressed up as tradition. "They weren't special," my son said after reading one message. "They were just loud." That realization changed him. He stopped shrinking. He updated his resume, reconnected with old colleagues. Accepted invitations he'd once declined out of family obligations. One afternoon, he came home smiling. "I got an offer," he said. "For what?" "A role I never thought I'd get." "They said my references were solid." I smiled. "They always were." The new job came with distance, a different city, a different circle, a fresh start. Before he moved, there was one last attempt. A letter arrived, handwritten, from his former father-in-law. Short, controlled, predictable. "You misunderstood me." I spoke harshly in the moment. "We can put this behind us if you keep this private." My son read it once, then folded it neatly. "No," he said. He didn't tear it up. He didn't respond. He simply filed it away, because sometimes refusal is louder than confrontation. On the night before his move, we sat on the porch again. Same chairs, same quiet, different air. "I used to think dignity was something you were given," my son said, "by families. By institutions. And now?" I asked. "Now I know it's something you keep," he replied. "Even when it costs you." He paused. "Especially then." The day he left, we loaded his car together. No rush. No tension, just motion. Before he drove off, he hugged me longer than usual. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For not asking me to endure what wasn't mine to carry." I watched his car disappear down the road, and I felt something settle. Not victory, not satisfaction, closure. People like his former in-laws survive on silence, on compliance, on others believing the lie that worth is inherited. They didn't lose power because someone attacked them. They lost it because someone refused to accept it, and that refusal traveled. It always does. The quiet after he moved felt different from every other silence that had come before. It wasn't tense. It wasn't waiting, it was settled. I woke up the first morning after his departure and stood in the kitchen, holding a mug I didn't need, staring at the empty driveway. For years, my son had been carrying a weight that didn't belong to him. Watching him drive away without it felt strange, like seeing someone walk differently after a cast comes off. He called that night. I unpacked, he said. It feels light here. Good, I replied. Home should feel like that. He told me about the apartment, small, plain, sunlight in the mornings. A view of the street instead of a gate. No one's watching who comes and goes, he said. I didn't realize how much that mattered. Neither had I until it was gone. The weeks passed and life continued the way it always does, quietly, steadily, without ceremony. But something fundamental had changed. People began calling, not reporters, not investigators. Just people, old colleagues of his former father-in-law, distant relatives, former friends who suddenly wanted to reconnect. The tone was always the same, careful, curious, uneasy. I didn't know, they would say, or I always wondered, or the most telling of all, that explains a lot. I never corrected them, never elaborated. Truth doesn't need help once it's loose. One afternoon, my son called me from his new office. They offered me a leadership role, he said, disbelief still in his voice. They said they value how I handled conflict. I smiled to myself. Conflict reveals character, I said. You showed yours. There was a pause. Dad, he said, I used to think I had to earn respect from people like them. And now I know the right people never make you audition for dignity. That sentence stayed with me. Months later, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years. A man who'd once spoken glowingly about my son's former in-laws. He looked uncomfortable when he recognized me. I heard about what happened, he said. So did many, I replied. He hesitated. I should have said something back then. Yes, I said gently, you should have. He nodded, ashamed. Accountability doesn't always arrive when it's useful. Sometimes it comes late, dragging regret behind it. My son never reached out to his former wife again. She sent one final message, short, quiet. I hope you're happy. He read it, didn't reply. Happiness doesn't need witnesses, he told me. As for her family, they faded, not dramatically, not publicly disgraced, just diminished. Boards replaced them, circles shifted, names stopped carrying weight. The world didn't punish them, it simply stopped listening. And for people who live on being heard, that is the deepest consequence of all. One evening, months later, my son came to visit. He looked different, not in his clothes, not in his posture. In his eyes, calm, clear. We sat on the porch again, watching the sky darken, like we had so many times before, but this time there was no tension in the air. I used to believe blood decided everything, he said. I know, I replied. They taught me that, he continued. Without ever saying it directly. And now I know blood just explains where you come from, he said, not who you are. He turned to me. Thank you for not teaching me to accept less. I shook my head. You taught yourself. I just stood nearby. He laughed softly. Later that night, after he left, I sat alone in the living room, thinking about the phone call that had started all of this. The insult, the arrogance. The idea that a person's worth could be reduced to lineage. People like that always believe they're gatekeepers, of status, of belonging, of value. What they never understand is that the moment they try to close a gate, they reveal how afraid they are of what's outside it. My son didn't win because he fought harder. He won because he refused to accept a lie. And lies, no matter how old, no matter how polished, collapse when someone stands up and says no. I thought about all the people who never get that chance. Who stay quiet, who stay small, who stay where they're told they belong. And I hoped quietly that hearing this story might loosen something in them, because dignity isn't inherited. It isn't granted by families or titles or names. It's chosen, sometimes late, sometimes at great cost, but always worth it. My phone buzzed before I went to bed. A message from my son, I'm home. Door unlocked, light on, feels right. I smiled. Somewhere, a man who believed blood decided worth was learning that power fades. And somewhere else, my son was building a life where no one ever questioned whether he belonged. That was enough. That was everything.